we want to find the inverse of y equals 2x minus 3. That is an equal sign, not a z. And anytime you have y, it means the same thing as f of x. So you could easily write f of x equals 2x minus 3. But to find the inverse, you have to do this. Switch the x and the y. Trade places. And then go through and solve for the y. So let's leave the y on the right. There's an x on the left. Move the minus 3 over with it. And then to get y by itself, we would have to divide both sides by 2, leaving us with a y on the right by itself. So the inverse of 2x minus 3 is x plus 3 over 2. You could write your final answer as this. The inverse of f of x equals x plus 3 over 2. Also, you could have the inverse of y is x plus 3 over 2. Let's find the inverse of y equals negative 6x plus 4. I have to switch the x and the y. So it's x equals a negative 6y plus 4. And move the 4 to the left. And then divide everything by negative 6. We don't want to have a negative number as a denominator in our fraction. So what you must always do in this case is drop that negative sign on the bottom so you can have a positive 6 and then change the sign of everything on the top. Let's find the inverse of y equals a half x plus 5. Switch the x and the y. And then solve for y. So move the 5 to the left, change the sign, and now you have a half y. In order to get the y by itself, you can multiply both sides by 2. Multiplying by 2 up against a half just makes it 1. And you want to expand out your answer. So 2x minus 10 would equal the inverse of y. Let's find the inverse of y equals 2x plus 2 over 3. So again, we're going to switch the x and the y, and then solve for y. One thing you could do is to cross multiply 3 times x, and then 2y plus 2 times 1. Remember, we want the y by itself, so we move the 2 to the left, change the sign, and then we'll have to divide everything by 2 to get 3x minus 2 over 2 equals y, which is technically the inverse of y. We will find the inverse of y equals the square root of x minus 2. Whenever you have square roots, make sure that if it's the square root of x minus 2, that you do not write it as this. Because if the square root bar does not cover this, it's in a completely different meaning. So always draw it properly. Switch the x and the y. And now we have to solve for y. And to get rid of that square root sign, we have to square both sides. So we'll square the x squared, and we're going to square the square root of y minus 2. That gives us an x squared on the right, and when we square the square root of y minus 2, we're left with simply y minus 2. And we must have y by itself. So move the minus 2 to the left. And there's your answer. We'll find the inverse of y equals the square root of 4x minus 3. and then minus 5. Notice the minus 5 is outside the square root symbol. Switch the x and the y. Now, the first thing we have to do is move the minus 5 to the left to make it plus 5. And then we have to remove the square root sign by finding the square of both sides. When we do that, we have the quantity squared of x plus 5 equals 4y minus 3. And we have to move that minus 3 to the left, and it's going to be plus 3. So now the only thing left to do is to divide the left-hand side as well as the right by 4. You have to switch x and y, and let's move this minus 2 to the left, and then divide everything by a negative 1. So the inverse of y is going to be negative x minus 2. We need to switch x and y, and then solve for y. So we're going to move the minus 2 to the left, and then we have to multiply by 3 to get rid of the 1/3 on the right. If you expand this out, it'll be 3x plus 6 equals y. The inverse of y is 3x plus 6. We need to interchange x and y and then solve for y. We can cross multiply to get a 5x equals 3y minus 1, and move the minus 1 to the left, changing it to plus 1, and then dividing both sides by 3 to be left with 5x plus 1, not 3. 5x plus 1 over 3 equals y. So the inverse of y is 5x plus 1 over 3.